Good evening. Welcome, everyone. My name is Jared Nicholson. I am the mayor, and we are really looking forward to sharing an update on the Pickering school building process and getting your comments and feedback. So thank you all so much for being here. Would also like to thank the Pickering School Building Committee, of which many of the members are here with us this evening, who've done a lot of work over the last year and more to get us to this point, as well as the my colleagues on the school committee. School committee member Lorraine Gately and Brian Castellanos are both here, who are members of the school building committee, and we're also joined by school committee member Donna Capola and Tiffany Magnolia. City councilors Rick Starbird and Wayne Mosey, Ward 2, Ward 1 respectively, also here, and members of the school building committee, former Mayor McGee as well. And then there's many of our other members of the school building committee, both here and online on the Zoom option. I know Ward 5 Councilor Jakutis is ill, and I believe is joined by video as well as some of our other school building committee members. So one of the things that the school building committee has done so far is put a team together. So we're joined this evening by our project manager for this project, Left Field Management, Lynn Stapleton, as well as the architect for the project, Gene Raymond Design Associates. We're joined by Gene as well. So thank you all so much for being here and all the work so far, and thank you to the participants online and in person. If anybody needs translation, we have that available. Si alguien necesita alguien traducir o interpretar, tenemos estas máquinas. Y aquí está la persona para español. Great, and we also have Haitian and Arabic. So if anybody needs a Haitian over there and an Arabic right back there. Great, so as you all know, we are here to talk about the Pickering process. We have been working as hard as we can to make this as transparent as possible. A lot of you hopefully saw this on social media, saw it in our newspaper, saw it in our emails, received something in your mailbox or somebody on your doorstep. We've been really trying to get it out there. We really appreciate you all being here, those of us who are joining online, and we will continue to try to share all the information we have to make this as transparent as we can. We are also really prioritizing this as a top need for the city to do something here for Pickering Middle School. You can see that walking in the building, that building does not meet our standards and aspirations for a school building for Lynn Public Schools, and is in really dire need of an upgrade. And you also probably know that not only do we have to address the conditions of this building, but we have a real issue with a number of students. As a district, to be able to provide the education that we must provide to our students, we need more classroom space in the Lynn Public Schools. And this project is helping us make progress towards that goal. We therefore are trying to work through this process, like I said, in a way that's as transparent as possible, but also sort of matches the urgency of the need. So we want to do the process right. We also want to move with urgency so that we can get to a building as soon as we can that our students deserve. So part of our goals here are around meeting an aggressive timeline to try to be able to open that school as soon as we can, because our students deserve that. We're going to walk through 6 locations this evening. I would ask that folks hold off on reacting to any particular location until we get to the end, because a lot of the locations are not going to be viable, as you see. We need to survey the district for the full range of locations in order to satisfy our obligations to the process. So that's a big part of the reason to have this full list here. And you'll see as we go through the list, there's no perfect location. There's going to be trade-offs for all of them. And what you'll see is a recommendation for what the project team feels like is the best location given those trade-offs. That is a recommendation from the project team. It's going to be a decision that the school building committee makes on, hopefully it's scheduled to make at its meeting on Wednesday. Or it's on the agenda for its meeting on Wednesday. So you'll have, this is a recommendation that you'll see tonight and from the project team. this is not a decision that the project team makes, it's the decision that the building committee makes. And it's on the agenda for its meeting on Wednesday. We are eager to get your comments and your feedback. So obviously for those in the room, we'll be able to hear you directly, and someone will be taking down those notes and those comments. There's also a Zoom here where we can field questions and comments, and then you'll see contact information for the project itself for anyone that wants to follow up with a comment over the coming duration of the work. So thank you again for being here. We're really excited to share this update, and I will turn it over back to the team. Thank you.
Good evening, everyone. My name is Deborah Giro. I'm the superintendent this year. We're very happy to have you all here. This community forum is an opportunity for you to give your feedback on potential site for the new Pickering Middle School. This is also an opportunity for us as a community to provide our students with a space for learning that allows for the same advantages and experiences that students in neighboring communities are afforded. I'm a firm believer that we work the way we feel. We must prioritize our students and show them that we value them and that we want them to feel that their learning experiences and learning spaces are important to us. Please help us to make this new middle school a great space for education and learning for our students who will someday be the leaders for us tomorrow. I'm going to turn it over to Jean.
Hi, my name is Lynn Stapleton, and I'm the owner's project manager. Glenfield is the firm that is providing the owner's project management. And with me, I have Tim Baker from Glenfield as well. We'll be going through the project schedule on the upcoming slides, and we'll identify some of the milestone dates that we have to meet in order to stay within the MSBA process. The MSBA process is a highly prescribed process. It has checks and balances along the way, and we are currently in the first phase of the MSBA process, where we will be looking to develop the educational program, as well as look at all available sites within the district and analyze those sites and make a recommendation. And we are in our second public forum. The first was on educational visioning, and the second is tonight on site selection. So all of this is in anticipation of opening a new school in September of 2026. I want you to go back. Sorry. And later on in the slideshow, I'm going to show you the project's website and tell you where you can connect to keep up to date with the project as we go along and find all of the information, as well as links to the videos of all the meetings and the meeting minutes for those.
Actually, yes, we can hear. So after Lynn goes through the prescribed process for the state grant, most of the presentation will involve providing an overview of the six potential sites that we've explored, and then how we have sorted them initially from 6 to 3. And then at the conclusion, why we think one of the sites in particular is probably the best bet for this project. So I'll be going through most of that. By the way, I'm sorry, my name's Gene Raymond, and I'm with Raymond Design Associates, so we're the project architect. Hello? Sorry.
So we are here tonight to take comments and questions from the audience as well as those on the webinar. We, however, ask that you hold all questions and comments till the end of the presentation. If you're in the audience tonight, link to the webinar so that you can comment in the chat. We will read all comments in the chat at the end and respond to those as well. So, as I said before, MSBA is a highly prescribed process. There's several modules that we have to get through. We are currently in what they call module 3, the feasibility study process. It consists of 2 phases, the preliminary design program phase, which we call the PDP. You hear that acronym throughout the process. And we're currently in that phase. We're targeting a submission date of January 18th, 2023 for this phase. The PDP phase includes the development of the educational program as well as the analyzing the sites. You have to progress it forward so that So back in December, we had the educational vision public forum, and tonight is our public forum on site. After we complete the preliminary design program, we'll move into the preferred schematic report, where we analyze further the sites that we narrowed down to into the selected site. Hopefully that will be selected on December 21st. And we'll gather more information and submit that report to MSBA. We're targeting April 27th, 2023 for that submission. This is one submission that has to go before the MSBA Board of Directors, and we're targeting the end of June for the MSBA Board of Directors approval of our preferred schematic. Then we will move into the schematic design phase, where we will further develop the preferred option, and to the point that we can develop a confident project scope and budget, as well as schedule. We're targeting that date, August 31st, 2023 for that, and MSBA's Board of Director approval on October 25th. Once MSB approves the project, it goes to approval of the city to move forward with the project and the funding. After that point, we would enter into further development of the design, bidding, and construction of the project. And as I said before, this is all for our planned school opening in the fall of 2026.
I'm speaking a little louder now, right? So, I think the mayor touched on it a little bit. There's really no perfect site in Lynn. It's a very densely developed city, as you all know. We do have to be somewhere in the Pickering district. And so we have been able to identify 6 potential sites. I'll just list them, and then we'll go into a little more detail on each one of them. But Gowdy Park, the former Union Hospital site, the existing Pickering site, which we know is very small, but one of the requirements of the MSBA is that you do show what you could do on your existing school site. There are a couple of privately held parcels. One is on Rockdale Avenue, or off of it. Another is on Broadway, over by the Peabody line. And then the final one we looked at was Magnolia Park, which was down the hill and out behind the existing Pickering site. As we look at all the potential sites, we have to look at them in the lens of various considerations. Probably the first is the size. You know, we need a site that is large enough to hold a school that's going to have twice as many pupils as the Pickering does now, which is what led us to look at those 6 sites initially. Because there's going to be some rebalancing taking some of the pupils from the other two middle schools, which are currently overcrowded, and, moving them up into this district. The location for the site is very important. And that's frankly why a couple of the sites we looked at fell off fairly quickly. Utility infrastructure, most of the sites, I'll say all the sites, we're not too concerned. We know we can get water and natural gas and power too. But the next one, which is soils, ledge, and topography, a couple of the sites you're going to see kind of fell off because they're just right on top of bedrock. And they'd be very, very time consuming and expensive to develop. Two of the sites, Gowdy and Magnolia, are parks. And with that comes a process where if the city decided they wanted to turn one of those from parkland to school property, you'd have to go through a process with the state legislature, which is frankly very straightforward, but it's something that has to occur. It happens all the time in every session, with communities all throughout the state. Some of the sites might have wetlands or have floodplains. Traffic and transportation is another big thing. I'm just going to say from the outset that all of these sites would have traffic impacts. So we're not sure, we have to think about it, but I'm not sure that's going to be a driving factor. It may in fact be a driving factor in eliminating a couple, and then neighborhood impact. So let me just geographically, site 1 and 2 are Gowdy Park and the Union Hospital site. And those are, as you can imagine, way far up north on Linfield Street. The Pickering Middle School is this number 5, and you can see it's more centrally located. And then Broadway is over here. Thank you, Lynn's telling me to use a laser pointer. Broadway is over here on the Peabody line. The Rockdale site, which again is private, is a little closer to Wyoma Square. And then site number 6 is Magnolia, which is right behind Pickering. So Gowdy, Union Hospital, Pickering, Broadway, Rockdale, and Magnolia. As I said, we went through an initial sorting process, and it became clear very quickly that 3 of the sites really are not practical. Gowdy Park and the former Union Hospital site are way, way up north. And if we're going to be kind of rebalancing the middle school population and moving some pupils from the southern side of the city, really, I think transportation and for a host of reasons, you're not going to be well served bringing a bunch of new pupils all the way up through Wyoma Square to the end of the city limits. The other one was Pickering Sisson, which I'm repeating myself, but that site is very small. We can't do a new project here. I'll show you what we could do with an addition renovation, but it has some negative impacts. And then we did, in the second portion of this, take a look a little deeper at Broadway, Rockdale, and Magnolia Park. So with that, I will give you an overview of the 6 sites, if you don't mind. The first 3 are going to be the ones that were removed from consideration. And this is the Gowdy Park parcel. It's set back a block off of Linfield Street. Size-wise, it is large enough. And what we've done is we've shown the footprint for the Thurgood Marshall Middle School. It doesn't mean that we're going to be building a replica of that building, but that school is kind of a good touchstone because it's the same exact size enrollment-wise as what's planned for Pickering. So you can see that we can fit parking, we can fit a school building, and we have some room for play. but really what knocked it out was its remote location, being way too far north. It does have other issues in, this street right here is currently a one-way heading out to Linfield Street, and that would have to be changed to a two-way so we could bring, cars and buses through the site back out to Linfield Street. It does have a floodplain. It's going to require that article, what they call an Article 97 filing with the state legislature, to convert it from parkland to school property. But what we highlighted in red is really why it fell off pretty fast in the process. The next one is the former Union Hospital site. And there are a number of developments either here or kind of ongoing on this site. There's a medical office building, another medical office building that's under construction, and another one that's permitted here. Really, this fell off the radar screen again because it's so far north in the city, and transportation and the traffic on Linfield Street are real issues. But in addition to that, the city would have to pay to take the land. They would lose commercial tax base. They would lose services that, you know, these medical facilities are going to be providing. So that fell off pretty quick. And the last one that fell off pretty quick was the building we're in right now. This is Canomo Avenue, this green area right here. The Pickering School is this shape right here. And as you know, probably Sisson Elementary School is attached to it. So we cannot take Sisson offline. The Pickering, if we were to try to work with it, there's really nowhere to fit the footprint such as Thurgood Marshall here. So we would end up taking, or the city would end up taking 3 properties out toward Broadway, and we'd end up building a 3 or 4 story addition to the existing Pickering. This was eliminated because frankly, the site is just too small. When you're doing an addition renovation, it's harder to actually meet all the subtleties or goals of your educational program because you kind of have to work with what's here. So, you know, a new school building would be a lot nicer, and this site just can't handle it. So we ended up with 3 sites that we were calling the finalists, and you can see the Broadway site. Again, the Peabody line runs right along the northern edge of it. The Rockdale site, Rockdale Ave, and then Magnolia Park. And we've highlighted not only Magnolia Park, but also the Sisson Pickering property, because there's a couple options that might involve using maybe the tennis courts or replacing the tennis courts somewhere else on the Sisson property. So let me run you through those. The first one we looked at was the Rockdale Avenue site. And what we've done is we've highlighted in yellow a number of parcels. I think it was 7 or 8 parcels that the city would have to take by eminent domain, pay for. And, you know, when we were looking at it, the access seemed to most likely come off Broadway. But when I show you some of the other sites, and I have in the past, we have yellow lines showing where MBTA bus routes are. And this site is very remote. It's about a quarter of a mile from Broadway and very, where a lot of kids will be taking the bus. We're not quite confident that this is the best site from a transportation standpoint. It's also right in the middle of 2 residential neighborhoods, which is a consideration. But really the main reason, and I'll show you another diagram, is this is just a big mountain of bedrock. So in order to kind of take down the top of this hill and create a plateau for the building the parking lot, maybe some play fields. You'd probably be up there for about a year blasting and chipping away at rock, just to get yourself a plateau. So besides the disturbance to the neighborhood, that also becomes a schedule issue, and time is money. So, and then obviously the goal of the city is to try to get this school up online as fast as possible. The next site is similar to that. It's the site up on Broadway. There's a kind of a linear ridge right here. We could get there. It would involve taking one or more properties off Commonwealth and making our way up onto the ridge. Again, we'd be spending a lot of time, a lot of money trying to take this hill down. It's all solid rock, and get a plateau to build on. And then you never want to be limited to one way in and out in case there's an emergency. So and for circulation purposes, so there'd be the need to take another property actually on Broadway. So while this one is closer to the MBTA bus line, it is on the edge of the city. So you're dragging, you're pulling a lot of people, you know, kind of through the city to the edge. And then it has those schedule and disturbance issues. And then finally, Magnolia Park. And I'm just going to pick up on the Magnolia Park parcel itself. We've outlined here in yellow. The Sisson and Pickering property are not outlined. So we kind of took a look at, let's say that we're limited to this. We know we have a very popular and important baseball stadium, which has to stay. Frankly, the site is so pinched anyway that it doesn't make sense to do much over here. We do have this purple line, which was an underground MWRA water line that goes through the site, and it serves a couple of communities to the north of Lynn. We have to work around that. It's something that's definitely one of the constraints. But the thing about the site is these yellow highlights. It's actually the most centrally located site in the city, and all those yellow lines are MBTA bus lines. So again, if you're thinking that or remembering, the city is going to have to rebalance the middle school population and bring some more pupils up into wherever this school ends up. The MBTA bus line and routes are very important factors. Besides being kind of the most centrally located, or there are no takings involved. It is a park, and you have to go through that Article 97 process, and it will need some pile foundations. It's not rock, so you can go on right away and you can just start putting piles in the ground, which is what happened over to Thurgood Marshall. So the schedule impacts on construction and getting the school actually finished are eased here. So for the traffic and location overview, again, this is just to refresh. We had the Broadway site, fairly remote, and you're bringing a lot of people, whether it's from the north, the south, all up to the edge of the city on Broadway. Rockdale is well off any of these MBTA bus routes. It's smack in the middle of two kind of densely populated neighborhoods. And the Magnolia site is down here, you know, tucked around these 3 or 4 MBTA bus lines that all converge on Wyoma Square. I kept coming back to Bedrock because it has disturbance, cost, schedule issues. These striped lines are the extent of so-called bedrock, or just plain old rock hills in Lynn. And you can see Rockdale and Broadway are right smack dab on top of them. and the Magnolia site is not. And so that led us to our recommendation to the school building committee that they further explore options on Magnolia Park. We understand it's a very densely populated area, but we can fit a new school in this little nook right here without disturbing the MWRA line, which would be a schedule impact if we had to address it. Or we might start looking at having an academic wing down on the park, and maybe, as I said, going up onto the tennis courts at Sisson and having some sort of bridge that goes over the MWRA line. Neither of these are the solution. We're just doing what we call test fits to make sure that the site actually could work if the school building committee agreed with our recommendations. So with that, I'll turn it back over to Lynn to just reiterate on how the question and comment portion could work.
So we'd like to hear from you. So if we'll start with the ones in the audience first, if they'll come down to the podium and state your name and address and ask your questions. And we'll also start to monitor questions and comments coming in on the chat. But while we start to do that, I'd like to tell you about how to get to the Pickering Middle School website. You can either follow this web address, or you can Google Pickering MS Building Project, and the website will come up. I have heard from people in the public that it is a little difficult to find the information that you want. It's a little difficult for us to show you the website right now and navigate it through. However, if you go to the website and on the main page, there's a contact button. And if you send a question asking for help on navigating the website and send that email, I'll get back in touch with you and take you through the website at your convenience. We also have all of our meetings on the Lynn TV channel, youtube.com. You'll have to follow this website. You can also find this link on the website as well. Do we have any questions in the audience?
Hi, I'm Jane Charadano, 63 Springvale Avenue. I was just wondering which sites you just counted. The ones that you said were just not going to be in the top 6.
Okay. I'm going to go all the way back a few slides, this slide right here. So the ones that we sorted out originally, we did not consider practical, were the Gowdy Park and the Union Hot. Sorry, the ones that we sorted out originally were the Gowdy Park and the Union Hospital site because they were so far north. And with Union Hospital, it had the complication, not the complication, but the downside of taking services out of the city and commercial properties off the tax roll. Then the other one that we eliminated quickly was the Pickering Middle School site, the site that we're on, because we can't fit a new building on this site and keep the Sisson School operational, or the Pickering. Thank you, Lynn. And we'd actually end up taking 3 commercial properties out towards Broadway. Did that answer your question?
We did look at all available open land in the city. However, what we very quickly determined is that we needed to focus on what was in what school, what area of land was available in the Pickering district. Because that was our charge, to replace or renovate the existing Pickering school. There were several sites outside of this blue line that you see here, dash line, which is the Pickering district, that we had looked at, but didn't fall into our analysis because they were outside of the district.
Hi, I'm Penny Pension. I live at 45 Magnolia Avenue, 2 houses up from Magnolia Park. When we moved there in 1958, there was no Magnolia Park. It was a swamp. There was no meadow court. That was a flax factory. So anytime that we have extraordinary flooding, that floods completely. I don't know if you remember the Mother's Day flooding we had. Sluice overflowed all the way down, filled up the park, flowed over into Flax. Flax continued flowing out onto Western Avenue. So I just want to make sure that if you are building there, you do it correctly. And not like Classical that was sinking because the pilings wouldn't stop.
Thank you for that. We were aware, and I did not mention, but there is a floodplain on this site. But because we have to do a pile foundation, we are able to lift the building up out of the floodplain. It doesn't have to be on stilts, only needs to be 2 or 3 feet high. We're going to use the same exact foundation and floor slab system that was used at Thurgood Marshall because it had a very soft clay site. And it's a different structural system than what ended up getting used at Classical High School. So there'll be no issues as far anything like Classic. So it's
Rhoda, I live at 48 Mayfair Street, which is perpendicular to Rockdale Ave, and my parents live on Rockdale Ave as well. And I just wanted to make note that it doesn't only affect 2 neighborhoods. There's 4 neighborhoods that's really affected. And on top, all those houses around there, we have severe flooding issues because there's a brook that runs through there. And from the development of the Kelly Lane development that Solomini is project, our flooding has gotten worse because there's less trees and been able to suck everything up, and the flooding has been like really bad. So I can imagine if we knock down more trees and put there, that the school would probably have flooding, because my parents who live on that street as well, I live down the street, have flooding all the time because all the weather.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense because remember I was saying it's complete bedrock, this site. So when the water hits, it goes through whatever soil is there, but then it hits rock and it's got to go somewhere. So if the city were to develop something here, not only are you trying to create a huge plateau, you know, with schedule and time impacts and cost impacts, but you'd also have a very difficult time managing stormwater, which it sounds like, well, we already know the site has a lot of issues with stormwater as it is.
Is there anyone else from the audience?
Hello, my name is Lydia. I live on Commonwealth Road. What part of houses are you gonna take from Broadway and Commonwealth Road?
We just to be clear, we are not recommending this site. So But the only way to get into it, were the city to choose to develop it, would be to take one house. I don't know the road that comes in and joins Commonwealth right here, the short little road. But somewhere right around that intersection, you'd have to take one or two houses. That's one of the main reasons that we don't recommend this site. We also, as I said, you'd never want to have just one way in and out in case there's an emergency. So, there would be the need to look at taking another property on Broadway itself. You're welcome.
Good evening, Brant Duncan, 100 Commonwealth Road. Not necessarily a comment on the sites, but rather a need for a school. For those of us in the Pickering community, our students experience temperatures over 100 degrees due to an issue with the heat. On the same day, there was a plumbing backup, and plumbing impacted all of the bathrooms for a few hours before that it was controlled. So looking at these sites, living on Commonwealth Road, which is adjacent to two of the sites that are considered in need of more research. We know that there's no perfect site here in our city, but we do know that our kids deserve better than what we have here at the school. So I commend the committee and their work and their research and the due diligence. And I think it's important that we rally around the decision that's being made forward, and it's in the best interest of our community. It's the best interest of our kids. Thank you.
I'm going to read some of the comments and questions that are on the webinar. We have one from Tiffany. They're not giving addresses. Can someone explain the rebalancing of the Thurgood Marshall Middle School and Breed students? Is Pickering gaining more students to do redistricting? Why is this? And then also, will these slides be available post-meeting?
Yes, this presentation will be available on the website as well as on the YouTube channel.
So the city, as you may know, has 3 middle schools: Breed, Thurgood Marshall, and Pickering. And the Breed district is over here, kind of in the south west edge of the city, or the portion. The Thurgood Marshall is over here on the southeast, and the Pickering district is this long district here, hugging kind of the northeast portion of the city. Thurgood Marshall was built for 1,100 pupils, and I'm going to turn to the superintendent, but there are many more there.
1,300.
So there are 1,300 pupils there now. So it's what we would call overcapacity, right? And that impacts clearly the educational program and delivery that school is able to give. The same thing is happening with Breed, where it has more pupils than it should.
They are also 1,300.
So Breed, thank you. Breed is also 1,300 and should be down closer to 900. Pickering is currently 550 pupils, and the state funding agency, MSBA, as part of their grant, did an enrollment study and determined that the size of the new Pickering should be 1,100 pupils. So that means we don't know where, and nor does the school committee, but you could take pupils out of Thurgood Marshall up to Pickering. You could take some from Breed and go up into Pickering, or you could kind of just do things in a clockwise or counterclockwise manner. But what we've done is identified all the MBTA bus routes, and we know that one way or another, more students are going to be coming from the south part of the city. That's why we were recommending Magnolia, because it's kind of at the hub of all these bus lines, and it's also not way up at the north end. So it's a lot easier transportation wise and traffic wise for everyone in the city to have this be closer to those two other districts.
I have an anonymous attendee. Am I allowed to be anonymous? How will the city address the students now moving into apartments on or near the Linway?
So, I think if we're talking about the projected school enrollment, the answer to that is the exercise that we went through with the MSBA, that, we're working with the MSBA, put together, a proposal for a certain number of students, and, so we were approved to do an 1,100 person middle school, for this project. And as you can see, this is going to help us address issues in overcrowding and Pickering, but really throughout the city because of the way that we're adding classroom capacity. So whether it be on the Linway or up in Ward 1 or any part of the city, we're adding classrooms that benefit the entire community.
I have a question from Jennifer White. She lives at 18 Porter Ave, which is off of Peary Ave, which connects to Magnolia to Euclid Ave. Currently, the traffic congestion on Magnolia is congested as it is in the mornings and afternoons. What have they looked at or have they considered as far as helping with traffic?
We have a very strong traffic consultant on our team. And no matter what site is selected, we know traffic is going to be an issue. So if the school building committee decided to choose Magnolia at our recommendation, the next phase of the project, we would get in depth in looking at different options for what construction we could do for the school, but also what we could do on and around the site and neighborhood for as far as traffic mitigation. So I don't have a specific answer for you now, except that we know it's an issue. If this ends up being the site, there is going to be a great deal of study and recommendations as far as addressing traffic in this neighborhood.
I have a question from Coco Angson. Is there any legal clause of using a public park for a site?
You can do it with the permission of the state legislature. And as I mentioned at the outset, it's a very common request. Typically, the legislature approves a great number of these from communities all over the Commonwealth during every session. So there would be a piece of legislation that the Lynn delegation would have to submit. Obviously, we would help and with technical data. Then typically what you must do, the city must do is if you've taken X number of acres, you have to replace that acreage with public park somewhere else within the city boundaries. And I think, yeah, go ahead, the mayor.
Yeah, just to add to that, I just want to drive home that we take this really seriously, the obligation to maintain our park system. And, ideally, we wouldn't have to take parkland offline, but you see that we're limited with the number of sites we're working with. I think for context here, we also expect our park system to continue to see drastic improvements overall. We're bringing online hopefully a 33-acre park down on the Linway with the Harbor Park. Working with the council, the city just made a once-in-a-generation investment to the park system through our federal American Rescue Plan Act funding that's spread out around the city. And when we come up with the final plan for how to do that land swap for parkland, have other options as well around the city. So that's something we'll need to work through, but that we take very seriously.
We have a question around the MWRA pipe. Last time around, the MWRA pipe seemed to be a deal breaker. What has changed?
The last time we were looking at this site, it was for a 650 pupil school. We have a different school program. But we also have taken the time to take the educational program and design little buildings that we know can fit on this site. So as some of you may know, last time, a different site was the focus. And that was really the reason that we didn't pursue what we're pursuing now, which are these test fits that show that you can do it without impacting the MWRA line.
We have a question from Michael Satterwhite. Can the legislature take into consideration the new parks that are being built currently, 33 acres, Mayor Nicholson just mentioned, or does it have to come after a vote?
Part of the process.
Yeah,
Part of the application.
we're going to start the Article 97 process once we select the site, but that will require us to work with, obviously, the school building committee decision on Wednesday, but then the school committee, the city council, the Parks Commission, Conservation Commission, and then ultimately the legislature. So that will unfold in the coming weeks. Gene, you want to add anything?
I would just say, when the city does file its legislation, they, in broad terms, they say, we'd like to take X number of acres offline at Magnolia, and we would replace it at whatever location with whatever acreage,
Equal to or more.
that's equal to or more. As what you took.
We had a couple of questions again that were concerned about the flooding and wanting to know how that would be addressed and how we're going to avoid the classical situation. I think you answered that. And we have a question, again, anonymous. And if the existing middle schools are over capacity, how much extra space will be provided in the new school? 600 seats will be full soon. And I mean, they will be full probably immediately, I would say, because we're overcrowded in all our other schools. And other than that, there were questions and comments around Rockdale Ave, but you clearly said that it was not a recommendation, and the gentleman, Bill Riley, was asking those questions, and he did note, I live on Rockdale, and what I'm hearing in this public forum is encouraging. So I think he's happy about what you said. And then in the chat, just want to make sure. My name is Robert Lees, and I live at 47 Rockdale. Two issues that I see are that Rockdale is one of the steepest hills, or steepest, sorry, steepest hills in the city, and the extra traffic, including school buses, either coming up or going down Rockdale, would be hazardous at best. Secondly, the North Shore Christian School on Urban Street already monopolizes the intersection at Euclid Ave and Rockdale. Adding Pickering traffic would triple the immediate surrounding area. Thank you for hearing my opinion. And then the last comment. So to be clear, this new school will be as big as Thurgood Marshall is in size. And the answer to that is yes. Marshall is 1,100 students, but currently has 1,300. The proposed size is an 1,100 student school for Pickering.
Well, I just want to thank everyone again for turning out and sharing your questions and comments. We really appreciate it. Thank you to everybody online who joined us and sharing your questions. Thanks to the whole team here throughout the setup, the project team, to LCTV for helping us broadcast, to the Breed team here, help with the AV. We are very excited to have been able to share this update. And as I mentioned at the top of the meeting, it now will go to the school building committee, which is meeting on Wednesday. Please do not hesitate to reach out with any further comments or questions. Lynn showed you the project site information, the school building committee website. You're also always welcome to reach out to myself, the mayor's office, and any of the other representatives here who would be glad to hear further from. Sure, I guess we got a couple other online ones that we can do here. Yeah, that's okay.
They just came in. First, Michelle G. wanted to say thank you for all the transparency and community involvement this time around, much appreciated. John is asking pros and cons to Magnolia site versus Parkland Ave site from previous go around.
As I said before, because we were tasked with replacing the Pickering school, as opposed to the last time around when we were looking at the overall middle school enrollment for the city, we were tasked with looking at available sites within the Pickering Middle School District, and Parkland is outside of that.
From Michael Satterwhite, if we moved to Magnolia Park, does the city plan on putting a park at the former location of Pickering to keep an open space available for the neighborhood? 33 acres on the beach is pretty far.
Thank you so much for the question. I think that we will have to get into the specifics about what the Article 97 swap will be once we select the site, but certainly that'll be part of the consideration.
And then the last question, what is the plan for moving Thurgood and Breed students over to a new Pickering? How will it be decided what students make the move to a different location? I believe that needs to go through the school committee around redistricting streets that make the most sense for the move to the new Pickering. And that will be a process that we'll go through with the school committee. That was the last one. Thank you to the webinar guests for their questions, and thank you for those of you who are here for coming, first of all, taking the time to be here, but also for asking your insightful questions. We appreciate your input. Thank you.
Yep. Thanks, everyone.